Dear learners, welcome to the video lecture series 5 for BA first semester political science in the paper of Introduction to the Political Theory. I am Dr. Deepak Kumar Kashyap, assistant professor at Pandit Sundarlal Sarma Open University. Today we are going to explore one of the most fundamental concept in political science, that is power. Power is the life lifeline of politics. It determines who makes decision, who influences other, and how societies are governed. When we think of politics, we often think of government, elections, or laws. But all of these are expressions of power. Who has it? How it is exercised? And how it is affected people. Understanding power is the essential to understanding politics itself. So over the next 20-25 minutes, I will guide you through the first, the meaning and definition of power from key political scientists. Second, the feature and the nature of power in political system. Third, the types of power with real life examples from India and the world. And fourth one, how power is exercised in institutions, society through economic and social influence. Today I am going to present an important and a fundamental concept in political science, which is power. Power is the backbone of politics and governance. Without power, no authority can function, no decision can be implemented, and no system of order can be maintained in society. From ancient kingdom to modern democracies, power has always played a central role in shaping political structure and social relationship. The study of power helps us to understand how leaders influence citizens and how government controls resources and how institutions maintain stability. Power is not limited to the politics alone. It also exists in families, schools, workplace, religious organization, and international relations. Whenever one individual or group influence another, power is present. In this presentation, we will discuss the meaning and definition of power, including the perspective of German sociologist Max Weber. We will also examine its characteristics, types, sources, and uses. By the end of this presentation, you will have a clear understanding how power operates and why it is essential for the functioning of society. First, if we talk about the meaning and definition of power, as power, at its core, power refers to the ability of an individual or group to influence another person, group, or situation. It represents an effective capacity through which one can shape, control, or redirect the behavior, actions, or decisions of the others. Power is not merely abstract, it is exercised in practice to achieve a specific objective from the personal to the political. Power is the capacity through which an individual or group or institution is able to influence the decision, policies, and behaviors of other individuals, groups, and institutions. In political science, power is the central organizing concept. It determines who governs, how policies are made, and whose interest may serve within any given political system. And power is not always negative. It can be used to maintain order, promote development, and ensure justice. However, it can also be misused for operations and exploitation. Therefore, understanding power is essential for analyzing both democratic and authoritarian systems. By studying power, we can learn how authority is established, how influence is exercised, and how resistance emerge within society. If we take the example of Max Weber classical definition, the Max Weber have a major contribution in the concept of power, authority, and legitimacy. If we talk about the Max Weber definition, Max Weber defined and it highlights that power is the ability of a person to enforce their will on others, even against resistance. And Weber definition also highlights a critical dimension that the power is not merely persuasion or agreement, but it involves the capacity to overcome opposition. Even when others resist, the power holder can still achieve their desired outcomes. And this conception underscored the power often involve asymmetry. One party's will prevails over another's, and shaping the very foundation of political authority and social order. If we talk about the characteristics of the power, the characteristic of power is not a monolithic force. The impact of power, there are types of power is positive and negative power. Where positive power defined in terms when ruled constructive, power derives development, reform and social improvement. Where leaders use political power to build institutions, enact beneficial policies and upliftment of community, and it creates opportunities and foster progress. Secondly, if we talk about the negative power, conversely, power can be used for domination, coercion, and exploitation. And in authoritarian regime, the corrupt officers and the oppressive institutions exemplify how negative power suppresses freedom and imposes unjust control over the others. If we talk about the diversity of power and sources, that we can divide it into three parts, that how the power have an autonomy and it used as an influential tool. If we talk about the diverse sources, power can be originated from the economic wealth, social standing, religious authority, political office, or cultural influence. And there are no single source monopolizes powers in any society, which we can uh, discuss in after slides. In second point, autonomy. Power enabled individuals or group to make independent decision. And the greater the power held in a given situation, the greater the capacity of self-determination and autonomous action can be taking place. And third is threat and reward. Power can operate through two primary levers. Threat, maintain discipline and enforce compliance, will reward provides motivation and incentive operations. If we talk about the types of power in political science, political scientists have identified several distinct categories of power that individual and institutions exercise in society. Each type draws from a different source and it operates through different mechanisms of influence. Understanding this type is essential for analyzing and how authority functions in the practice. If we talk about the power, there have six type of power. The first power is referent power, second is informational power, third is legitimate power, fourth is reward power, fifth is the coercive power, and sixth is expert power. If we discuss in all in detail in next slides. If we talk about the legitimate power and reward power, the legitimate power, this is a power a person that holds due to their official position or formal authority. It is embedded in organizational hierarchies and political structures. If we saw the example, a CEO has final authority over company decision, a president commands the executive branch, and the legitimate power is accepted because it is institutionally recognized. Secondly, if we talk about the reward power belongs to those who can motivate others through incentive like promotions, bonuses, recognition, or privilege. A manager who rewards employee for strong performance exercises this power channelizing behavior towards desired outcome through positive reinforcement. Then we talk about the coercive power. Coercive power is basically refer to the lies on the ability to compel compliance through fear, punishment, or threat. It is the power of enforcement, police controlling criminals, military forces deterring enemies, or disciplinary system within organization will effective over reliance or coercion often breed resentment and resistance. Second, in we talk about the expert power. Expert power derives from the specialized knowledge or skills that others do not possess. Scientists, engineers, doctors, and scholars hold authority in their respective field because of their expertise. This form of power is earned through education, training, and demonstrated competence. Then we talk about the referent power. Referent powers come from a persons that belong to the charisma personality, personal appeal, or respect they command. Leaders, celebrities, and the public figures who inspire admiration and loyalty exercise a referent power. Followers voluntarily align themselves with such individual because of they are not what position they hold. Then next power is informational power. In present time, the informational power have a major role to boil anyone's policies. Informational power belongs to those who possesses critical information that others need or desire. A journalist with exclusive evidence, an intelligence officer with classified data, or analyst with proprietary market insights all wield informational power by controlling the by flow and access of knowledge. If we talk about the types of power by domain, beyond the formal categories used in political science, power can be also classified by the domain or arena in which it exercised. And each domain of power draws a distinct resources and operates through different mechanism of influence. If we talk about the first power according to domain, the first is the physical power. This is the power which expresses through strength, military force, or physical ability. Throughout history, nations and empires have relied on physical power to conquer territories, enforce laws, and defend borders. Military capabilities remains one of the most visible forms of power in international relations, shaping alliance and deterring aggression. Second is economic power. Economic power is expressed through wealth, resources, and financial influence. Nations with strong economy can be leveraged through trade, sanctions, and invest to shape global politics. At the domestic level, corporations and the wealthy individuals exercise economic power through market dominance, lobbying, and philanthropic influence over public policy. If we talk about the political power is exercised through elections, legislation, decision making process, and government policies. It is the power to shape the rules by which society operates and determining taxation, public service, rights, and obligations. Political power is the most institutional form and is central to governance. Then next is the central cultural power. Cultural power is expressed through ideas, beliefs, traditions, and cultural influence. It also shapes values, norms, and worldviews across populations, media, education system, and religious institutions. All serve as vehicles for cultural power and often operating subtly below the surface of formal politics. And next is the psychological power. Psychological power operates through persuasion, manipulation, and emotional influence on individuals or groups. Propaganda, advertising, and the rhetoric skill all exemplifies physical power at work, and it's shaping perceptions and behavior without the overt use of formal and formal authority. If we talk about the five domains of power, which we compared in a chart form, we see the first we saw the domain, second we saw the primary resources, third is mechanism, and fourth is the example. Then how high domains of power are used in present time. If we talk about the physical domain, the primary source of physical domain is the military force, and its mechanism is coercive and defense. It is used in national armed force. Second, in economic domain, the primary resources of economic domain is wealth and resources, and its mechanism is trade, investment, and sanction, and its example is multinational corporations. Third is the political. Its primary source is the legal authority, and its mechanism is the legislature and governance. Or its example, we can say in elected government. Fourth is the cultural domain. In cultural domain, the primary resource of cultural domain is idea and beliefs. That mechanism is education, media, and tradition. Its example we can say in global media network. The fifth is domain is the psychological domain. In psychological domain, the primary resource is persuasion, and mechanism is the rhetoric and manipulation. And its example is political propaganda. So we can simply sum up with that each domain of power interact with the others. Economic power can be fund political campaigns. Cultural power can legitimate military action. Psychological power can undermine economic confidence. In practice, the most effective exercise of power draws from the multiple domains similar to this. The use of power, where how power is used, how how power is exercised matter as much who holds it. political scientists identify three primary modes through which power is put into the practice, and each distinct by dynamics and consequences for society. If we talk about the direct control, a direct control, a group or individual that can directly control the actions and decisions of others. This is the most visible form of power, where government issuing order, military commander directing troops, or managers assigning tasks. Second is the moral influence. Individual or groups that influence others through ideas, beliefs, ethical persuasions, like religious leader, philosopher, and social movement that exercise moral influence to change hearts and minds without coercion. The third is the institutional power. Institutional power basically define institutional and organizing organizations exercise power through establishing structure and processes. Governments, bureaucracies, courts, and administrative machinery that shape daily life through systematic authority. If we talk about the conclusion, we can draw conclusion in four form. First, in power is universal because power pervades every level of human interaction from personal relationship to international affairs. So it is the central concept of political science. Second, power has many forms. Power, we can say power have many forms like illegitimate, coercive, expert, referred, reward, and information power, where each draw from different sources and produce different effect on society. The third, power operates across domains: physical, economic, political, culture, and psychological power. They are interact and reinforce one to other in complex way. Fourth, how power is used define its impact, whether through direct control, moral influence, or institutional authority. The manner in which power can is exercised determines whether it builds or destroys. In conclusion, we can say that power is the foundation of political life. It shapes decisions, relationships, and social order. Understanding power helps us analyze governance, democracy, and global politics. Proper use of power promotes justice and development, will misuse lead to inequality. And thank you. Thank you.